Hi there. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Great to see you here. Once again, I see we've got some new faces as well, which is always good to see. Welcome to our last weekly webinar. So Shane, we've enjoyed doing it. This is our 10th one. So it's the 10th week we've been doing this. And John and I have loved doing it. It was fantastic. But there's only so much you can do on a weekly thing because there's a lot of time involved in doing one of these. You've got no idea. But it's not the end of our webinars. We're still going to be doing them. They won't be weekly, but we're going to be doing them. But they won't be live. They'll be recorded, and obviously we'll send a link out, and you'll be able to watch them. And you know where you can watch them on our website, where you can watch all the other ones. Fantastic. Well, for those who don't know, I'll introduce myself. So I'm a businessman. I've been self-employed in business since 1974. Which is a longer time than most of you have been on the planet. I'm a property investor, been a property investor for 36 years. I'm an author of 6 books with 2 more on the way. I'm a mentor and an educator. And we love what we do. I'm going to pass you over now to John, who's going to tell you something about himself.
Thanks very much, Peter, and great to see you all here again. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Jonathan Bratmansky. I help Peter with the hosting of the webinars that we've run, but my background is marketing. I have a first-class honours degree in marketing, advertising, and public relations. I won an academic scholarship and the Robert Leaf Prize at university, which was for best public relations students. Following university, I run my own marketing agency called Adept Marketing Services, and we provide the services that you can see on the screen here. And again, with regards to property, Effie needs promoting. You need to connect with the right people. So that's really the skills that I bring. So that's me in a nutshell. Back to you, Peter.
Thanks, John. Now, again, if anybody's got any questions, please write them in the chat box. We'll get them all at the end of the session. That way we're not diverting from what we're saying. We don't lose our track. Now, latest news on Pico. Well, there's a bit of news today, some different stuff, and we're going in. We're taking off in a big way now, and we're shortly starting a monthly virtual Pico meeting. Virtual rather than real, because you can get more people here, and you don't have to go out and travel. And we're very, very conscious of driving anywhere with the cost of fuel at the moment, and the cost of travel can only go up the way things are happening in certain parts of the world. And we've got to be very careful. So it's going to be a virtual monthly meeting. We'll have guest speakers. We'll have loads of information opportunities, and we'll be doing networking. And it won't be just 10 minutes. There'll be some good networking as well. We're planning for the first Monday of every month, but we'll confirm that as well as a start date and who the first speakers will be. Although I'm telling you, we already have got our first speaker already booked. Now, we'll keep you informed in progress. Please watch out for our emails. Now, today is our last webinar, although, as I say, we'll be doing regular recorded training webinars. It was going to be last week. Last week was going to be the last one, but we had so much interest from the week before's webinar that we decided to host another one this week called Is It Time to Ditch HMOs? Now, we're going to explore the strategy of co-living and show you examples of real co-living spaces, as they like to be called, to show you what the traditional rent-to-rent HMO landlord is up against. The question will be, is now the time to get out of HMOs? Or if we can't beat them, do we join them? Now, before we get into that, I just want to mention something very interesting and relevant. A program is going to start on TV this coming weekend, this Easter weekend. And it's about this guy who faked his own death by drowning, pretending to drown out at sea when his canoe apparently overturned it. And this was about, I don't know, it was 20 years ago or so ago now, and I remember it very well. Now, this guy had substantial financial problems because of a buy-to-let portfolio I set up in the early noughties. Now, he fell into the trap that many established and newbie property investors fell into at that time. And that was the availability of no deposit mortgages and up to 125% mortgages, along with £10,000 cashback offers. And if you didn't know what that was, it meant you get 100%, 125% mortgage, you get no deposit down, and they give you £10,000 cash as well. So you can imagine what was happening there. And virtually anybody could get one. It's not like it was now. You didn't have to prove this and that and anything else. If you applied, the fact that you could write a letter was enough. That was enough to give you a mortgage. The mortgages were short term. and interest-only plans, which people didn't realise were a recipe for disaster. The financial crisis, and that erupted in 2007 and led to the crash in 2008, and the subsequent recession, started in the housing industry in the USA, with subprime and government-backed entities such as Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, if you've heard of those, which guaranteed mortgages to people who wouldn't otherwise qualify for them. These mortgages were then often sold on by the banks, as were all the mortgages in this country. They were sold on to other institutions who wanted to buy them, which was a real problem. The canoe guy, from what I remember, he was just bad at handling his finances, and he ended up in a pickle, prompting his canoe death fraud to claim insurance money. But for most other investors, the problem came during the recession when their mortgage term came to an end, because usually they only had a 10-year mortgage term. Then they had to pay off their mortgage, which they couldn't do, or remortgage their property, which they also couldn't do because the banks had stopped giving out mortgages because of the recession. Or they had to sell the properties, which they also couldn't do because no one could buy them because you couldn't get a mortgage. It was a unique situation never before seen. The housing market was awash with B&B and bargain price properties, which absolutely no one could take advantage of because no one could buy and no one could sell. It was crazy, but it was there. Now, you never know when the next crash will happen, but you can be sure it will happen because they're cyclical. And with what's happening in Russia at the moment, it's anybody's guess. There could even be another world war. We don't know. Just be careful and never assume anything. Okay? Okay. So, is it time to ditch HMOs? What do you think? Well, yes. It's yes if you're talking about the traditional rent-to-rent way into it, which a lot of people do and who think it's the only way in. And it's no if you're going to be more creative. Now, I'm betting it's not something that's occurred to you has been very important, but there are big changes going on in the property market at the moment, and you need to know the effect they could have on you, particularly if you're an HMO landlord or on the property industry in general, could have an effect. So let's have a look at the history of HMOs and how they've changed. Now, I don't think there's ever been a time in history when everybody either owned, leased or rented their own home, which meant there was always people looking for somewhere to live. And there was always enterprising people to rent out a room and let them use their spare room for payment. Now, obviously, at the beginning, there were no regulations and no one could see any reason why there should be any. There was just no need for them. People were happy to let out a room and people were happy to pay for them. However, smarter people realized that they could rent out a whole house, room by room, and also overcrowd those rooms. And as long as there were people willing to pay, like immigrants, then there was going to be no problem. The trouble was those kind of places very soon became breeding places of sickness, for crime, and all sorts of nasty problems, not least of which, from the authorities' point of view, is that they were missing out on money, taxes, and of course, control. So regulations started creeping in, leading to the situation we're in today. And if you think this is it, this is where the regulations stop, think again. Councils and the government will never miss an opportunity to increase both taxes and control. You can bet on that. Not only that, of course, but the population is as a whole becoming much smarter and is much more aware of their rights and how to pressure a landlord. So back to tonight's subject. Is it time to ditch HMOs? As a nation, we've started to embrace a more flexible approach to work and to life. We're becoming accustomed to many stylish and inspiring co-working spaces popping up in every area of London. The co-working spaces everywhere. And this is because, most people are working from home and they just can't use the big office spaces. We're even getting used to seeing co-working spaces that offer personal trainers, roofs to sunbathe on, gyms, swimming pools, and nurseries to help people with childcare woes. So it's only natural that the next big thing to happen is co-living. Times change, perceptions change, and you need to keep up with the changes, or else. That's obvious, right? Now, I mentioned last week that we saw a note in a newspaper, or John saw it, and sent it down to me. And this is it. You can see that. I'll read it out. Developers believe they will change perceptions and raise the bar in standards of houses of multiple occupation with their latest development. Applicants Miller and Company will create an 11-bedroom home out of a block of disused offices in Birmingham Road, just outside Walsall Town Centre. Previous HMO proposals across the region have sparked objections and concerns about them creating an increase in crime and other issues. The proposals have been given the go-ahead by Walsall Council planning officers, subject to conditions. Miller and Company said the HMO would have a coffee shop style communal place with kitchen areas where people can sit and work, relax, as well as dine. Other features include individual bathroom facilities for each tenant and bedrooms described as functional and stylish. In the application, the agent said, Miller and Company designs and develops its co-living house shares to an exceptionally high standard. They believe it's possible to raise the bar substantially with HMO housing, providing accommodation that enhances the well-being of tenants and managing the properties with exceptional standards of customer service. Based on the other HMOs Miller and Company have created, the firm said it expected the tenants will be mostly single professionals, female, aged between 24 and 30, with an average stay of around 18 months in the property. Now, that's incredible. Obviously, if you're in property, it shouldn't be news to you, although it might be news to some of you because co-living has been around for a few years now. But I just want to show you some pictures of HMOs, and I say that in inverted commas. These are actually co-living spaces. And all these pictures I've taken off the internet in the last week. This is what people are now providing. Now, never did you ever see an HMO that looked like that. 100% never. And I'm going to whiz through these, and you know, you don't need me to talk a lot about them. That's a communal space. Look, with the TV, it's beautiful, and this is what people are coming to expect these days. There's a kitchen. You know, look at the view from the window. It's fabulous. Here's somewhere where they've got a pool table, a little games room somebody's put in their HMO, and a little drawing board, little board there that people can chalk on. Look at that for a kitchen. Isn't that fabulous? I mean, you'd love that for your own home. You would live in this HMO, wouldn't you? What do you think the people who have to live in HMOs, when they go into one of these, they only leave for a number of reasons. They leave because they're getting married. They leave because they find a better place, which probably they're not going to do, or they're leaving because they can afford to buy their own home. But, you know, if they're going to buy their own home, it's probably not going to be as good as this. These are fabulous rooms, and this is a new style of HMOs. And this is what you should be looking at doing with your room. So when you go around and you're looking at rent-to-rent property and you go and see it in some dingy place, this is what you can go and convert it into. And if you can't, don't take that property on, because it's just not going to work. Isn't that lovely? I mean, it's big, it's bright, it's airy. Yeah, it could be even better. It could be a better table. I mean, a little table and chair there, but it could be a better desk type table, because people like to, you know, people sit at the worktop. Who's got work to do at the worktop with the laptop and do work. They all need to do that. But look at this for a living space, a co-living space. Look at that. It's fabulous. And there's a bar there. Look, this is actually a co-living space, a co-living, co-working space. But look at it. And look at the view out of the window. This is what you can get now. And it's the way the HMO market is going. And you can't think, you know, oh, it's all right for them, but not for me. You just can't think that. So that's the way you've got to do it. And that's the way you have got to do it that way now. Or you could do it the old rent-to-rent way, which is that. And this was being advertised last week, and probably still is, on Gumtree, and I doubt it's going to go very quickly. But you can see that when you can see what is available, and then you're showing this, you've got to think a number of things. You've got to think, what kind of person is going to take this? Are they going to respect this place? Because they obviously are not going to think that I am. And how long are they going to be there? And what's my void situation over a 12-month period going to be like? Here's another one. Look, it's on Gumtree this past week, and I say probably still is. You've got to wonder what is going through a landlord's head when he advertises a room, an HMO, looking like that. If there's anybody who doesn't actually know what rent-to-rent is, I'm going to tell you. When to do rent-to-rent, what you do is you rent a 4 or 5 bed townhouse, usually 3 to 5 years, because you normally can't get any longer than 5 years because the landlord won't let you have that. Then you've got to refurbish. You've got to add value. You've got to add value to it. So you've got to refurbish it as best you can on a budget. And really, you need 5 bedrooms to make it work. Then you've got to try and find suitable tenants at minimal rent for the area. Then you've got to keep on top of damage and maintenance and voids because, you know, like I say, you don't know who you're getting in there or whether they're going to respect and care for your property. And then you've got to hand it back to the landlord at the end of the tenancy. And of course, when you do that, there's no exit cash benefit. So you don't benefit from everything. No matter that you've refurbed the whole house for him, you don't get any cash benefit for that. He benefits from that. And also, it doesn't matter if the equity's gone up, if the value of the property's gone up, you don't gain from that anyway. So rent to rent, I'm going to tell you, is a waste of time. Don't do it. If that was the only thing, if that was the only way possible doing it, then you know it's the only way, but it's not by a long way. So don't do it. Or you could buy one of these. How about that? You could buy that. Now all these were over. All these are the pictures I've got this weekend. They're all for sale. And you'll be surprised how little money they're going for, really, for what they are. That's the outside view of it. Isn't that lovely? Imagine having that as an HMO or a co-living space. I'll show you this. This is a foyer entrance. Look, there, look. Imagine what you could do with that. You know, this could be so high class. You could have reception there. You could have security in this place. It's the potential with this is amazing. It's fantastic. Here's another one. Look at that. That's gorgeous. It's got its own car parking space. You can see at the right-hand side there of the building, some cars parked there. It's got all its own car parking and everything. There's that. That's available office space. There's that. Look at that whole building from there to there. That whole building is going, and it's not a lot of money. How about that? That's going, as is that. And look at that one. Look at that for a co-living space. Now you see the difference between that and you know, a house stuck somewhere in a road. You know my feelings about that. Now I've got to tell you something that a lot of people don't know, because you don't have to turn these into HMOs. There's all sorts of things you can do with them. But when you go from commercial properties like these are, I specifically mentioned commercial properties, office blocks, is that there is no requirement for planning permission to convert from commercial to residential. You do all that with PDR. You don't have to apply for planning. There's no reason for it. So just think of the potential here. From HMOs to co-living and co-working to disabled and social housing, there is a huge potential here. But you don't have to do it that way. I mean, that's a good way. That's the way I like to do things, the proper way. Anybody who knows me, like, you know, if you're going to do it right. That's one of my sayings in life. Anybody know this place? It's in Essex. It's called Terminus House. Some might not. This is the front view of it. Enticing, isn't it? Now I'm going to tell you something. This was an office block, and in a very short time, it's become a hellhole for tenants. It's got no amenities anywhere nearby that they can get to, like shops, like schools or pubs. The nearest school is a 40-minute walk away. In the last few weeks, 27 prisoners just released from jail have been moved in there by the authorities. In the first year, crime in the area increased by 45%. This is maybe not what you're doing. Of course, the landlords don't care. Why would they care? There's an article written about this, and I'll read you out some of what it says. Catch it as a tenant. Her flat is small. If you open the door, you hit the bed. Freezing in winter, boiling in summer, and prone to mold. Being on the ground floor, she doesn't dare open her windows at night. There have been drug dealing and knife fights in her block. There is always shouting and arguing, she says. The children are frightened. Her neighbours have similar experiences. Their block is privately owned, but they're being placed there by local authorities desperate to find anywhere to house them. My italics, and that's for a reason. Now, some have lived there 2 or more years, transplanted from London boroughs. It might take 2 or more hours and cost £50 or more to visit friends and family. They have minimal storage space, bicycles jammed on narrow corridors, which would be a hazard in a fire, because as residents say, there's nowhere else for them to go. The only outdoor space where the children play is a patch of grass around the refuse bins or a car park at the front. At one end, trucks trundle back and forth, serving a depot for heavy construction machinery at the back. Or, as we said before, disabled accommodation is a big money spinner, and that could be the way to go. That house I was just telling you about, I think it only came out, I can't remember if it was 2017 or 2018. And you can't blame the property investors who did that. They just took advantage of a situation. But there are different ways they could have done that. And disabled accommodation is a big money spinner, and the councils are desperate for it. This was a question I picked up on the internet this week. It's about Brive and Hove City Council, and it's a question somebody asked: when will there be safe and suitable accommodation for people with disabilities? There's nothing out there at the moment, and people with disabilities are struggling, including myself. And the answers are, hi there. I don't think anybody here will be able to answer that. I'm sorry you can't find anything suitable. It took me over 12 months to get suitable accommodation when I became wheelbarrow chained, and you think that's quick compared to others. Have you reported this to your local MP? And another answer is, it's not just Brighton and Hove that has this issue. It's a problem that expands all over the country. Waiting lists are huge for any social housing property. And if it's a bungalow you're waiting for, then you could be in for an extremely long wait. Now, I've said this before. When something is in short supply, its value goes up. And disabled accommodation is right at the top of that list. Let me tell you something about disability HMOs. It means that full rent is paid even if you're empty. The council will still pay you full rent. Rental income is up to 50% higher than local rents. So you've got no maintenance costs, you've got no management costs, and it's a complete hands-free investment. Now, isn't that amazing? Now, when you look at that and you think about the small HMOs, you think, I've got to get into that. Why aren't I doing that? Well, I know, because I've had the answers to that. And the answers are, and this might be you, yeah, but that's too big for me. I could never do anything like that. I don't have the money. You know what? I'm going to give you a true example of a guy a few years ago that I met. He bought an office block, converted it. I've been around the office block. I've seen him, what he's doing in it. And he did a fantastic job. I think this was 4 years ago, possibly 5 years ago. And it's a guy I met through Jim Halliburton, or the HMO daddy, if you know him. If you're not, Google him. He's in Birmingham. He's got something like 1,000 rooms up there that he rents out. He's a great guy. I know Jim very well. So I was introduced to this guy through Jim. Now, he bought an office block in Birmingham. It was empty. And in fact, it had been empty for 2 years. And it had previously had a hairdresser's, a beauty parlor, and even had a radio station in it at one time. But it was empty. So he negotiated with the owner, and he took control with a 5-year lease option at a yearly fee of just £13,000. And that £13,000 was the cost of the rates and the council tax. He had an option to buy at any time during the 5 years at a purchase price of £300,000. Now, I want to explain to you at the moment, if you don't know, how commercial property is valued. Residential property is valued on its bricks and mortar. It's the cost of it and what it is. But commercial property is valued on its rental income. So when it's empty, its value is rock bottom, ridiculously cheap. So he had a 5-year option on this property where he could buy it at a purchase price of £300,000. So he converted the building into 20 studios at a cost of £200,000. Now, don't panic at this point. You don't have to have that kind of money yourself. He didn't. He borrowed it. You can use commercial bridging or joint finance, and we can show you how to do that. Money is everywhere, and you can get money. Don't worry about the money. Like I said before, if you wait until you get the money, you'll be waiting forever because you'll never get the money. You've got to get going and get started. He didn't have any money when he started. Incidentally, he wasn't a property investor either. He was a builder. he even made the silly mistake of doing pretty well all the building work himself, which he wasted a year and a year's rent. He could have had it going and bringing in rent by that time. And he lost a lot of money by doing that, but he wanted to do it himself, and he did. And he was actually building it when I went round to see it. So when it was fully let, the annual rental income for that place was £120,000. And that was undervalued. He had actually undervalued it at that. He could easily have got 150, but £120,000 was valued at. Now, surveyors, when surveyors value a commercial property, they value it in a different way. They value it on the rental income, but they apply a multiple to the annual rent to determine the building's value. Now, the multiple varies depending on the area, but in this case, in Birmingham, it was around 8 buys, so it's an 8 times multiple. So that valued the building at £96,000. So let's look at the financials here. So the annual option fee is £13,000, and for 5 years, that's £65,000 to pay the option fee. The conversion was 200,000, and the purchase price is 300,000. Well, bear in mind, he didn't need the £300,000 at the beginning, but that's what he would have needed to buy it. But so his total costs are £565,000, excluding, solicitors and stuff like that. Now, the value after the conversion was £960,000. That's fantastic. Now, eventually he decided, obviously, to mortgage it, and he took out 70% out of that £960,000, which is £672,000. Now, when you take his costs of £565,000 there, he's left with a cash profit of £107,000. That's not bad, is it? Okay. Now, the rental income, he had 3 over this 5-year lease option period. He had 2 years doing the rebuild work, the refurb, and 3 years when he was actually renting the place out. And he'd done a good job, so it was full all the time. And at £120,000 a year, that's £360,000 total rent income. Plus the £107,000 cash profit he'd already made was £467,000. Now, he needed to buy the thing on a mortgage, he needed to pay a deposit, 30%. And his mortgage deposit was £288,000. So his overall cash profit on that was £179,000. You've got to remember that he didn't need to buy it until he'd had 3 years worth of rental income coming in, 360,000, and that £107,000 cash profit. So he had £467,000 in cash, more or less, depending on how much he spent, sitting around in the bank, out of which he then took his £288,000 deposit to buy the property. So his overall cash profit is left with £179,000, more or less, in the bank. Plus, he has an unencumbered property producing £120,000 per annum, and he started with nothing. So tell me again why you can't do it. Oh yeah, that's right, I remember. Yeah, but it's too big for me, and this is what people, not guys, just guys as well, listening in tonight. They've phoned me in the last few weeks, and these are things they've said to me. Yeah, but it's too big for me. I can never do anything like that. I don't have the money. Well, I want to tell you something. And if you think I'm being a bit brutal here, I am, because somebody needs to kick some people at the bum. If that's what you're thinking, you're right, 100%. Please close the door on your way out. Because with that mindset, you're only ever going to be ordinary. I'm going to tell you something now. The only thing that's stopping you from being extraordinary is you. You see, I say this week after week, it's what's in your mind, it's what's in your brain. And the brain is an amazing thing. I'm going to tell you some true stories of amazing things that have happened with ordinary people. And these are all verified. I'm not making these up, these are real. In 2008, Chris Hickman, a Florida firefighter, and I'm reading this because it was in a newspaper, came to the scene of a car crash in which an older model Chevrolet Blazer had flipped and landed on its side, pinning the driver's arm between the vehicle and the pavement. And they mentioned older model Chevrolet Blazer, that's one of the big heavy ones in America, pinned the driver's arm between the vehicle and the pavement. Hickman then lifted the SUV for about 12 inches off the ground, giving the other firefighters the opportunity to rescue the truck driver. Now that weighs close to 2,000 pounds, that SUV, and he lifted it off the ground. That's amazing. You can't do that, you know, if you're thinking about it, because you say, I can't do that. I can't lift that. I'm not strong enough, so I can't do that. And of course, that negativity in your mind stops you from doing it. He didn't stop to do that. He just went over and lifted it. And this is what happens. This is what happens with people who stop to think about things and say, oh, I can't do that. And of course, you have some, you know, your eyes say, you think you can, you think you can't, you're always right. Or how about this? An autistic man in America can read a book, both pages, left and right at the same time, as quickly as he can turn the pages over. And he can remember every single word in the entire book and on what page, paragraph and line they're on. What he does, he just focuses on the center line, and his left eye scans the left page and his right eye the right page in an instant. And he remembers everything just like that. The mind is an incredible thing, and we use just a tiny, tiny fraction of it. Your mind can give you anything you want, but you have to give it a chance. And that means never being negative. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're always right. Henry Ford said that, and that's one of my favorite sayings. You know by now that I love sayings because they evolve from experiences, life experiences. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're always right. And the sooner you get onto your head and believe it, the better off you're going to be. Let me tell you something. It's best not to think too much at all and just get on and do it. And just because you don't know how to do it doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means you don't know how to do it yet, right? Let me explain, because it's very simple, really, but it's essential that you now understand this. Remember last week when I was talking to you about mindset? Always remember this. Everyone is born exactly the same. No one is born a 100-meter Olympic gold medalist. No one is born a doctor. No one is born a dictator. No one's born successful, and no one is born a failure. We become what we want to be. Our desires and beliefs are set in our subconscious mind by our family, our surroundings, and our events. And it's totally irrelevant whether you believe that or not. Totally irrelevant, because it won't change things. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're always right. And no one is born a rocket scientist. No one is born a concert pianist. They learn how to do it. And you can learn all about property investing. You probably realize by now that concert pianists aren't self-taught. People need other people's help to become successful, and there's nothing wrong with that. No one says you have to do it on your own. No one. And there's no reason why you should think you have to do it on your own. That's crazy. If you're keen and you're serious, we can do it together. You can change your life, but you have to change your mind first. If you can't become successful on your own, you need a mentor who knows what he's doing. So as a conclusion, yes, anyone can become successful, no matter who or what you are, as long as you go about it in the right way. But if you really want to invest on a smaller scale, and the size of the scale of some of these big ones frighten you, in August 2021, that's just a few months ago, in August 2021, housing classes E, M and O were changed to class MO, which means that you can now convert high street shops into HMOs without planning permission. How about that? And virtually nobody knows about this. It was brought in quietly, but it's there. So any empty high street shops, you can buy them. And believe me, these things, they're empty. They're commercial properties. They're not bringing any income, rental income or any business income. They're valued at rock bottom. But you can get them and you can convert those into HMOs, and you don't need any planning permission. How about that? You could very easily buy a whole street, as Jim Halliburton likes to do. Buy a whole street. Why not? Remember, it really doesn't matter who you are or what you are. Who your parents are is irrelevant. It absolutely makes no difference what your ethnicity or your religion is. It makes no difference what your education level is, whether you went to uni or not. It doesn't even matter if you're a good person or a bad person. Anyone can become wealthy and successful. You've just got to get your head in the right place and do it. Right? That's all you've got to do. Stop thinking you can't. Just get your head in the right place and think, sod it, I'm going to do it. You know, I grew up in my life thinking if he can do it, I can do it, and probably better. And that's held me in good stead my entire life. That's what you need to be thinking. If other people can do it, you can do it. Nobody's better than you. We're all born equal. So go. So we've got some upcoming changes to PICA, the Property Investors Coaching Academy. One of the things we're going to be doing is we're going to be introducing rights. Anybody who doesn't know what a right is? Anybody who doesn't know what a right is? A right? Yep, I'm going to tell you. A right, it obviously, as you'll read this, you'll get the idea that it comes from America, just like lease options did, which is where I found them all those years ago and brought them over to the UK. We're now getting going on rights. And yes, they're very legal here as well. Now, a real estate investment trust, a right is a real estate investment trust. And it's a company that owns, operates, or finances income-generating real estate, or properties, we say over here. It's modeled after mutual funds. That is, rights pool the capital of numerous investors. So you might have, say, £5,000 an investment fee, and we pool us all together and buy a property, and then everybody who's pooled in gets their percentage share of the properties. And that's fantastic. But there's more to it than that. This makes it possible for individual investors to earn dividends from real estate investments without having to buy, manage, or finance any properties themselves. Is that a good idea? Not many people doing this in this country, if any. So the key takeaways are: a real estate investment trust is a company that owns, operates, or finances income-producing properties. Most rights are publicly traded like stocks, which makes them highly liquid, unlike physical real estate investments. That means you can sell your share. You get a share certificate, and you actually sell or trade that certificate, which is going up in value, obviously. How about that? So, rights invest in most real estate property types, including apartment buildings, hotels, medical facilities, offices, retail centres, warehouses. That is fantastic. So, PICA is growing rapidly. What about you? And you know what we say every week? Personal mentoring is going to guarantee your success. Let's face it, we all need help in life. I certainly did. I had mentors that helped me, and you know, all the top people in the world do. And eventually they become mentors themselves. And what happens? What makes the world go round? We all need help, and you're no different. You're no different. Just don't sit around forever just thinking about it. Why? Because sitting around thinking about it allows all those negative thoughts to take root. And before you know it, you convince yourself it won't work. You know that, right? Because you're sitting there letting Nobby whisper in your ear, yeah, you can't do it. No good for you. It's too big for you. You haven't got any money. You can't make that work. What do you know about it? You're no good at that kind of thing. Forget it, because eventually that stuff becomes your way of life, becomes your mantra. And I despair sometimes, but the way why people leave that stuff is beyond me. Don't think that stuff, please. You can do anything you put your mind to. But look, just don't think you're too smart to need a mentor at all. Nobody's that smart. I certainly don't think I'd take a mentor today if I needed one. You know, everybody needs a mentor. And definitely don't think you'll start when you get the money. My favorite excuse, not favorite excuse. Don't come with that one. Don't think you'll start when you get the money, because you'll be waiting forever. You will never get the money until you commit, because until you commit, you don't need the money. It's like saying, I'm not going to start running because I'm not going to be a 100-meter gold medalist. I'll start doing training seriously when I'm good enough to be a 100-meter gold medalist. You'll never become a 100-meter gold medalist. You'll never get there because you haven't committed. You have to commit first, right? You have to commit. Now you can keep stumbling around in the dark and getting nowhere, or you can buy the bulletin and get stuck in. But whatever you do, don't waste time listening to Nobby. Don't, you know who Nobby is? That little chimp. Don't listen to Nobby, listen to Bobby. Bobby's a good guy on your other shoulder who says, you don't do it. If he can do it, you can do it. It's easy, you get stuck in there. The trouble is that Nobby got a louder voice and he doesn't stop. It's very hard for Bobby to get a word in. But eventually, when you stop listening to Nobby, he gets fed up and he stops trying to talk you down, and Bobby gets in there. And that's what you've got to remember. Just every time you get these negative thoughts, you know it's Nobby. Kick him into the background. Just get rid of him. Don't listen to it. Don't listen to those negative thoughts. Our personal mentoring gives you the skills and the confidence to help you succeed in property investment. We do 3-month, 6-month, and 12-month personal mentoring programs. And remember, this isn't coaching. You're not sitting in a classroom, once a month being told a strategy that you've got no interest in. This is personal mentoring programs. And remember, you're not just learning strategy with us. You're getting your head in that right place, because without that, you're not going to succeed. If you've got your head in the right place before you start, then you're okay. But not many people do. In fact, only about 2% of the population do. The rest of us need help to get going. And remember this, all personal mentoring fees work out cheaper than doing it yourself, and it's quicker. Even better, how about this? You can get 100% of your mentoring fees back. You can get all your mentoring fees back. How does that sound? I'll tell you how that works. As you know by now, John and I are looking for people to work with us in a 50-50 business partnership. That's 50% to you and 50% to John and I, and you have control. It's your business, but we're 50% share partners in it, okay? So we're not trying to scam anybody here. This is right up front. You know me by now, you know the way I work. Now, people on our mentoring program who want to go into business with us and do so, they will then get their mentoring fee back, 100% of it, every single penny. How about that? Now, let me ask you a question. Do you think that you could be successful and make money if you were partners in business with John and myself? Of course you could. Of course you're going to make money, because you can lean on us. That's what we're for. I want to tell you something. If we're going to go into a business with you, then it's in our interest that you are as successful as possible. Obviously, we want you to be successful. We're not going to sit back and watch you fail. We're going to be pushing you. We're going to be helping you, and we're going to be leveraging you to be successful as you can possibly be. Now, do you see the potential in working with us? Now, do you see that? Look, you're not going to get an offer anywhere else like this on the whole World Wide Web, let alone in the property industry in this country. I promise you that. You look, you see if you can. And if you do, you tell me, because I know it's not there. Now, remember, if you're going to spend the rest of your life sitting around thinking you can't do it, you don't know how, you'll start when you get the money, it's all right for him, but you don't serve success, and you'll never get it. It's a fact, you'll never get it. And you inside, deep down inside, you know that. You've just been frightened to admit it to yourself. Maybe, just maybe, you're frightened to make the step and become successful. I'm going to tell you something here. I've got a business called The Key to Life, thekeytolife.com. It's all about mindset and what it is. And very often when I'm doing talks around the country, and you may have seen me do talk, and you may have heard me ask this question: what is it that most people are afraid of? What is it that most people fear? And virtually everybody says failure. They fear failure. I'll tell you something, they don't. You don't fear failure, you fear success. And I'm going to tell you, I'm breaking off. I wasn't going to tell you this tonight, but I'm breaking off. I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to explain to you why you don't fear failure. And it starts with when you're born. Now, when you're in the womb, you're in a nice, warm, snug, friendly place, right? You don't have to worry about anything. You're nice and warm. You get fed whenever you want it, because it comes through that little tube, and it's fantastic. Then all of a sudden, your life as you know it gets upended, and you are squeezed and pushed and shoved down a little tube until a big pair of hard metal calipers gets hold of your head and pulls you out. Then somebody picks you up by your feet and smacks your arse, and you haven't even done anything. And the first thing that happens in this life is you get your arse smacked. There you go. What does that tell you? Straight away, after you've had your backside slaps, somebody wraps you in a towel and you get your dinner, don't you? You get fed straight away, instantly, as you come out. And you get cuddled and you get canoodled and you get, everything's nice again. So the first lesson you've ever learned in your life is that when something bad happens, something good immediately happens because somebody comes and puts things right for you. The initial failure, you don't fear anymore because you know somebody else is going to make things right for you. You walk down the street and you trip over a paving slab and you're instantly thinking, who can you sue? This is it. You don't worry about fear anymore. And that's a problem. You don't worry. Let's talk for a minute about the English football team. When in the World Championship, not the Europeans that they just lost, the world ones before that, where they'd lost in the semis, they came up, people were wanting them to be knighted for losing. What on earth is that saying to kids today? Where's the incentive? You get knighted for losing? You get rewarded for losing? No. The same thing happened when they just lost the semis. There were some penalties. You know what's happened? What's happened since 1966? I'm telling you, well, not since after 1966. Since we lost some penalties to Germany, the British nation collectively, and our football teams in particular, have got a mental block about penalties. It's not helped by the press bringing it up every time we're in a big football match, we're in a semi-final, we're in a final. And if we ever it comes to penalties, you know what's going to happen. You know for a fact what's going to happen. We're going to lose because every single one down there is quivering because they're thinking, what's going to happen if I lose? What if I don't score? And this whole saga, this whole story, this whole paradigm has now become the cybernetic program. If you're watching this, you know what I'm talking about. And it's stuck in their head. And British football players will never win a world championship until they get somebody in there that can get this thing out of their head about penalties. It's bred into us. We'll tell you a bit more about that later on. But listen, I'm going to tell you something. The sooner you start, the better, because success breeds success. Call, email me now to discuss how we can help you to achieve your goals. There's no commitment and there's no sales talk. It's just good, honest information and advice. But remember, at some point you have to change. So call me, email me. You know it makes sense. Now, yes, today is our last weekly training webinar, but we'll continue to produce recorded training webinars on a regular basis. And also our picker meetings are going to come out. These are going to be great. There's going to be so much good stuff on there. You're going to love it. And these are exciting times for Picker, and you should want to be a part of our success. Jump on the train, jump on it, and come along with us. Look, we keep telling you that sitting around wasting time and thinking about things is fatal, and we say that for a reason. Because it is. I've been self-employed for almost 50 years now, and I've learned a lot in that time, not just about property, but about business in general, and most importantly, about life too, which is why I'm the perfect mentor for you. And that's exactly why I'm telling you to stop wasting time. Look, what do you think the first thing a mentor looks for in a student? The ability to accept advice and take action, right? Otherwise, a student is going nowhere, irrespective of how good the mentor is. So what do you think we're going to say to you if you call us in 6 months' time and say, hey, I've been thinking about what you said in your webinars, I've decided you're right. I want to join your mentoring with a view to going into business with you. And as soon as I've got the money, I'll get back to you and join up. Do you really think that's the kind of person we want to go into business with? Really? You've watched 10 of these training webinars now. And if you missed any, you can watch the recordings on our website. So you know the potential of the money you can make with us and the strategies you've learned about that you never knew existed, and about our experience and expertise. You know the opportunity that's available here for you. and that you'll probably never see again. So don't sit around wondering about it. Be positive and take action now. You know that this is your chance to turn your world around, but it won't happen on its own. You need to start making a change in your life. So call me or mail me and let's get you started. Okay. Here's a question and answer session. I bet you're probably glad about that, aren't you? But here we are. Listen, some things have got to be said. Something's got to be said. And it's no use having webinars and especially paying for courses where people only say nice things to you. That's not what you need. Sometimes in life, you need a kick up the arse. Everybody does. Me too. And I've had them. But that's what you need to get going in life. And I'm telling you that. I know. I've had 50 years of experience from it. I know what's required. And I see people making the same old mistakes time after time after time. And I hate it. I just want to get you going, get you lot going and get you successful. That's it. So over to John. John, any questions? Let's get some questions asked here.
Thanks very much, Peter. I hope everyone's found that of interest and value tonight and learned some valuable top tips from Peter. I particularly enjoyed the examples where HMOs have worked really well. So that was great to see. And just picking up on the mindset, I think that's so important to have the right mindset, to have the confidence to go out there and do it. And just following on from the football reference, Peter, I'm a big Liverpool fan, so I'm keen to get this in. But Mohamed Salah, who's a forward for Liverpool, one of our star players, he's apparently visualising us lifting the quadruple within the 4 trophies this season. And apparently he's visualised himself playing in those matches, scoring the goals and lifting the trophies. And if it's took him from a good football player to one of the world's best, then it's something key for us all to do.
That's fantastic, because as I'm always saying, what you focus on, you get. You have to believe you can do it. If you don't believe you can do it, well, who else is going to believe you can do it? If you don't believe in yourself, who else is going to believe in you? You have to have self-belief. It's one of the main things. And that comes from focusing. From focusing. What you focus on, you get. It comes to you.
Great stuff. So going over to the Q&A session now, I just want to read out Summer's comment, actually, more of a comment than a question. But she said, I'm working with a commercial financial broker and it's so much easier to get funding than what I expected. And I think that's a fantastic comment. So thanks very much for sharing that, Simone. And it is, isn't it, Peter? It is a lot easier than what everybody initially thinks.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Simone. Yeah, it is easy. It's a lot easier than people realise. I told you last week about the 2 people who came to me up in the end of a PIN meeting at Blackfriars, it was a few years ago. Two kids in the 20s, didn't look like they had something between them. They actually had, they didn't know each other, they were completely unknown to each other. Between them, they had around £450,000 to invest. And there you go. And that's just 2. I've had lots of the times I've gone to PIN meetings and I've spoken to people who've had $500,000 to invest. It's phenomenal. It's there almost every PIN meeting. You'll find somebody there with money. Don't think you can't get it. It's there, but they're not going to give it up, to an idiot. They're not going to get it up to anybody who won't get the finger out and get going. But once you make the effort, that money will come to you, because now you've got something that you can show them they can get into. Okay, where you go, John.
Great stuff. Thanks so much, Simone. Right, question from Sard. Peter, with regards to teaching the commercial to residential strategy, is this taught at a partnership level or mentoring level?
Well, we initially cover it, Shard, and everybody on a mentoring level, because of course it's important. We're not going to hold things back in a mentoring level. You come in and you get taught what you want to know, and of course you don't know everything that there is to know. I mean, you'll have learned stuff tonight that you didn't know existed. We're going to show you everything that you want to know, and some things will pique your interest, others won't. It doesn't matter. It's what excites you, because you need to be excited about something to get into it and to make it work. So we'll go through the stuff with you. We'll explain what it is and how it works. That's what I've done tonight, but obviously in more detail and more depth. And you can say, you know what, Peter, I really fancy getting into those disabled things. I really, what I want to do. Let's do commercial to residential. Let's get and do that. And we'll say, fantastic, let's do it. So we'll go through it first. We'll teach you how it works during the mentoring. And then and you can start doing it in the mentoring. But as we get into the business, then whatever you want to do, whatever makes the business tick, is what we'll do together.
Okay, great stuff. I'll be able to answer the next question here. This webinar, which has been recorded, will go out tomorrow. So if you've missed anything, if you just want to go back through because you enjoyed it that much, then that will be going out tomorrow afternoon. It will come through an email, so do keep your eyes out for that one, and that will come through to you. Great stuff. I was just going to say, if anyone has any other questions, because we still have a few more minutes, please put them in the chat box, and Peter will do his best to answer those.
Yeah, you might as well ask the questions while you're here, because they're free, aren't they? So ask away. You don't care what they are. Ask away. Now, I'm going to tell you something while you're thinking about it and doing that. Our next recorded webinar will be recorded this week. I don't know when it'll be coming out yet, but it's recorded this week. It's going to be called "Do You Fancy a Sandwich?" Now, that's got you thinking, hasn't it? What the hell is he talking about? Do you fancy a sandwich? We mean, of course, a property sandwich. And you don't know what a property sandwich is. There's lots of things you don't know that I know, that I'm going to show you. So you stick around and we're going to show you. And this webinar will be coming out. It won't be a live one, it's recorded, but we'll be giving you the links and you can watch that. And you can find out how you can have a property sandwich and make a lot of cash very quickly. Because it's a cash property. It's a cash property deal where you make money very quickly. It's called sandwich, property sandwich. We'll show you that. Nobody else knows it. So this is coming from me. There you go. So there we go. That's the way you can watch. Make a note of that. You can watch all our previous training webinars there. And there's our contact details once again. So listen, I want to thank you very, very much for sticking with us all these weeks. And you know, just some very good cogent questions been asked. So a lot of interest being shown. And people been sticking around to the end, which is fantastic. I mean, you don't normally see that. We have a very high percentage of people who register who are showing up. That doesn't normally happen. And John, this is John's business. He will tell you how rare that is. And for people to actually stay to the end is even rarer still. So that's fantastic. It shows we're doing something right. It shows more than that. It shows that you're interested in it. And that's fantastic, because if you're not interested in something, you can't make it work. And I know you're interested in it. I know you might want to make it work. I know what's holding you back. I know what's holding you back, because I know these negative things are getting. I know where they come from and how they manifest themselves in your subconscious. Once you get rid of those, you can get to the top in anything, and nobody ever going to stop you. The only person who can stop you is you yourself. So anyway, that's all from me. You will be seeing me around again. You'll be hearing more about me. You'll be getting more emails. So that's all from me. Thank you very much. And over to you, John.
Fantastic. Well, I'm really conscious of everyone's time, of course, but again, thanks for everybody who's stuck with us for the last number of weeks. It's been a good 10 weeks or so that we've been doing these now. I think there's been some really good information shared. And again, you know, if there's anything that you need, do give us a call. But we are moving to obviously monthly, so please join us for that. Keep an eye out. We've got a lot of content coming through with regards to obviously the podcast, the webinars that Peter's spoken about. And yes, final thing from me, obviously, have the confidence. I think it's that mindset. And again, don't listen to Nobby, listen to Bobby.
There you go. But before we go, I've just seen a question come in from Michael Foti. I don't want to let questions go. He says, I've heard of commercial to residential buildings up to 2 flats above a shop. I'm assuming you mean above a shop. However, you mentioned converting to HMOs. How does that work, please? Well, the law came in, the law was changed in September last year, September 2021, which means that the commercial part of the property below the flats, the commercial part of the shop itself, can now be converted into an HMO to residential without going through planning. It's part of the permitted development rights. So you don't need permission for it. Yes, you've got to get a little piece of paper that says yes, you can do it. But that's only because you're ticking the boxes. Like, you know, you're not going to have manufacture fireworks now or something crazy like that. But once you've done that, that's all it is. It's as simple as that. Yes, it's new. It came out in August last year. You can now take high street shops and turn all of them into HMOs. And by all of it, I mean the commercial part as well as the residential part, turn the whole lot into flats where you couldn't do that before. Now you can. And now's the time to get into these shops, because they are at rock bottom price. Shops, you can't give them away. Get in there and do them now. That's it. Thank you. I'll see you next time. Thank you very much.
Great stuff, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.